I believe that we need to automate some existing processes, not only assist, but complete. So my gut feel is that we'll see a shift from sort of co-pilot mentality into autopilot mentality.
Welcome to Building Agentic Experiences, the podcast where we dig into what it actually takes to build AI that doesn't just assist, but acts. I'm Tapio Haaja, Chief Commercial Officer of Intentface, and with me,
Joni Juup, one of the founders and Chief Design Officer at Intentface. I want to say that we'll be talking a lot about MCPs, and just a note that if you haven't opened LinkedIn in the past 2 years, MCP is basically instructions for your AI, how to use different services. So look it up.
And together we bring you conversations with founders, product leaders, and others building this stuff for real. Not in theory, not in demos, in production. And today we got a great one. Our guest is Mikko Honkanen, co-founder of Vainu. Mikko started Vainu in 2014 after running sales teams at mail porter across the Nordics and Silicon Valley. Bootstrapped the company to over 50 million ARR with offices in Helsinki, Stockholm, Oslo, and Amsterdam. I also heard yesterday Mikko is quite a football fan. And here's why we wanted Mikko on the show right now. Vainu has gone from here's the data, go to sell, to shipping AI agents that dig through hundreds of pages of financial filings and public documents to find buying signals humans would never catch. That's a massive shift in what the product does and how users relate to it. Exactly what we want to unpack. Welcome, Mikko. Did I miss something?
No, I think that was spot on. Thanks for having me and great to be here.
Great. A little bit about the bootstrap mindset. So you sold your first customers with slides and no salary for 6 months. What did that early discipline teach you that still shapes how you build today?
Well, if you bootstrap the company, and when we started, I think slush in Finland was already a big thing, and most companies, at least, they had a clear goal of actually raising money. But we felt that we needed to, and we want to focus on actual customer use cases, and we felt that it's the best way to finance the business if you manage to find customers who want to buy, and also if you manage to work with them in a way that they want to renew and pay you also the year after. So we of course had both Pietari and myself. Pietari is CEO and co-founder as well. He also had a strong background in sales, so we felt that it's fairly easy to actually just go out there and sort of validate the idea by having as many discussions as possible with potential customers. And I think we were a little bit lucky, but we hit sort of the initial product market fit very early on, already before we had any offices or any employees, but we managed to close business. And yes, indeed, we used slides. I think we used Keynote back then. And then the initial product was basically sales lead email report. And that's where the name Vainu also comes from. Vainu is sort of a hunch or when a dog gets sent. So we wanted to provide an assistant for B2B salespeople that is always tracking what's going on and provide daily leads. And that's what we did. I think that bootstrapping mindset, we definitely have it. So you need to always pay attention to cash flow. I think it's always a good thing to pay attention to cash flow, and it also forces you to focus on things that actually create value for end customers. So yeah, that's my thoughts on bootstrapping.
Just curious, who were your first customers?
Well, one of the first ones, for example, academic work, recruiting firm. Remember that I sold the deal, Jukka Pulkkinen, who's nowadays running Skillio.ai. He bought, they're still customers, so I'm happy that they've been with us all these more than 10 years. I think we had quite a few like very active B2B sales organizations. They wanted to have a nice, good-looking user interface where they do prospecting. So academic work and other recruitment companies, lots of software businesses, like all those companies that had active salespeople doing manual prospecting. So we got quite a few of them before we actually even rented an office.
Nice. Okay, let's go to AI. So how did you personally get into agentic AI? What was like the first aha moment that you watched AI agent actually to complete something?
Well, AI has been part of Vainu from day one. So a lot before ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and these things. Already in 2014, when we provided these daily email reports for customers, we tracked, for example, job openings and press releases and news articles. So we built ourselves a classifying model. So when you get a press release, we had to do a couple of things. First of all, we needed to understand if this press release, for example, what it actually means, what's happening in this company that is sending out a press release. Is it a funding announcement? Is it an announcement about layoffs? Is it about announcing a new office, new strategy, appointing a new director? So yes, we built manually the training and validation data set, but then we had basically a classifying model in production that was using the training data set we put together manually. Also, I think things that happened way before ChatGPT, already 2018, 2019, we introduced something called Vainu custom industry. So it was a new taxonomy to label companies in a way that what are they actually doing? Because standard industry codes that are available in all countries, they're not really accurate. You only get one value often, like you have one industry code and it might say information technology, and that's it. But we felt that what if we analyze the website content of each company and try to assign as many labels as possible that come with a confidence score. So instead of just saying that this company is information technology company, we were able to say that it's a SaaS business, they focus on human resources, software, they use machine learning and artificial intelligence. So you ended up having a very rich company profile. That was, at least for me, an aha moment that we can actually create proprietary data sets if we apply machine learning and AI. Then when it comes to the sort of the agentic workflows, of course, those typical moments when ChatGPT came out, but also very recently when you start like connecting tools like or databases like Vainu with tools like Claude, the introduction of MCP, Model Context Protocol, gives you an idea that your data and your product can also definitely live outside your own user interface. You can actually benefit a lot from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, all these great language models if you connect your own data with them. So that was also an aha moment, at least when it comes to like opportunities I see for Vainu as a company.
Yeah, I remember you said that you asked about your customers or you asked from them that are they using MCPs, and at one point almost nobody was using it, and then something happened.
Yeah. I think it was in May last year, so 2025, we had a board meeting in Stockholm, and I'm also chairman of the company. So we made a decision and we wrote it down that yes, Vainu will provide an MCP. But then it was August or September last year, we had a meeting in Helsinki with all the CRM agency partners that we have, so companies that are doing consulting for Salesforce and HubSpot and Dynamics. And then I was asking, like, how many of you know the concept of MCP? And quite a few people said that they know the concept. And then I asked, do you have anything in production, like where you actually use MCP? And no one raised their hand. And then I felt that it's just one of these concepts or buzzwords that people talk about, but no one is really doing anything. But now, recently, we actually released an MCP, so many use cases. I feel that at least, 75% of the meetings that I conduct on a weekly basis, we discuss MCP. I think it's definitely like moving the needle for many companies. And it's an easy way, at least, to explore how other tools, other software tools can be used in tandem with tools like Cloud.
Yeah. it's super interesting because you might have a lot of external tools connected to Claude, and then you can also connect Vainu and sort of have that sort of meeting point there. I think if I remember correctly, you also stated that at some point that a lot of your customers are using Vainu through APIs. So a lot of like these power users and enterprises. Do you see that this is sort of like the natural step that they will use via APIs, but the APIs will become more like MCPs, CLI tools, something programmatic, but more intelligent maybe?
And that's been the case for us. Of course, many people especially in sales might mainly know Vainu as a prospecting tool. And when we mention Vainu, they think about our user interface. And yes, it's a great way to build lists and find companies and contacts and send them to CRM. But already quite some time, I would say most likely more than 5 years, the healthier business for us has been all these enterprise customers that actually use Vainu API and sort of the use cases are maybe not only more advanced, but they use data at scale. Now with agentic workflows and the development of AI, I'm very confident that definitely there will be more usage coming from agents than from humans. I think UI, user interface, still makes sense for some users, and if you're new and you start doing prospecting, you want to have a visual user interface. But definitely where the volume comes, it comes from AI agents. So I definitely see that being a very important part of it. One cool moment is also, I think it was definitely summertime, maybe 2022. So almost 4 years ago, we had an event with one of our HubSpot partners, Kaksio Labs, and I was giving a presentation in that meeting, and I remember somebody asked at the end, like, what do you see? What's the like next step in terms of CRM development? And somehow I felt that most likely there won't be a need to learn a navigation of a CRM, that it has to be some sort of natural language UI. Well, it took quite some time, but now I think it's very obvious. I think most companies now, when they start building their CRM workflows, they shouldn't use the navigation of the UI, but maybe they use Claude or something else that is connected with that, and then just use natural language or voice to guide the work, and CRM is only in the background.
Yeah, it makes sense because the building of UIs for such systems, you have to think about so many like edge cases and what do you want to achieve. But when you just give agent some tools, it can basically combine and do stuff that you can't even sort of predict at some in some cases. So yeah.
I want to ask one like cultural question. Okay, so machine learning and AI has been part of Vainu from the beginning. But do you have any like tips or tricks for other founders who maybe aren't that AI native right now?
Yeah.
How to get into this mindset?
I think this is 2026, in my opinion, is definitely a year when every owner, founder, senior director, they need to be super hands-on. I think it's not enough if they just set up an AI committee and assign one person that they trust to run and drive these initiatives. I think they need to be very hands-on just to realize the effect and impact the new technology has on their business. I think it's such a massive change that they need to be hands-on. It's impossible if you just look at the reports and set up different committees and small groups of people who are attacking that AI topic. I think they need to be in there themselves. Otherwise, I think they will lose lots of business and sort of miss the point.
So how do you personally find time to be hands-on?
Well, I feel that I'm in a lucky position that I'm not a supervisor or for anyone in the company. So I'm working very actively with customers and product development and also with sales and others. But I think managing people is obviously often quite time consuming. So that's one part that I don't have in my daily work. And then since I think my role is quite close to being a product manager for the agentic offering at Vainu. So then I think the best way to do that job is to actually meet with lots of customers and be curious. And like I said, being very hands-on, trying to understand how people could and should solve certain pain points that they have. Because I think the way salespeople, for example, the way they should act today is quite different than it was. And I think the change has been dramatic. Like, how do you build a list? How do you monitor what's going on with your account, with your customer portfolio? What used to work 5 years ago and what was the sort of the standard way of doing it? I think that's not the case anymore. So it's changing so fast. So I want to be there and also explore myself. So I'm definitely trying out new things and seeing if this could actually be a scalable way of doing something. So it's fun, but I think number one thing is that I don't have a big team that I'm managing. So then I can focus on those two things.
I think one sort of thing that impressed me in Vainu and working with you is that you're really hands-on with the customers and you see what they are struggling with and you understand, of course, you know your own platform and you sort of fiddle with the technology. So I think those three things are quite sort of, if you want to be a good product manager, it seems to be quite critical that you talk with the actual customers, not stare at stats all the day, but actually talk with them, understand the pain points, and then try to figure out how do we get this to work, which leads to probably your agentic offering.
Definitely. And even though it's, of course, I think I would imagine most product managers nowadays have access to these call recording, meeting recording systems and transcripts. And we use, for example, Garba.ai. So it's very easy with one button to just create a product feedback report that includes all the last, 500 customer meetings. But still, I think it's important that you have been part of those meetings, at least to some extent yourself, because then it also helps you to read the report. You know how what actually was said in the meeting, how it's seen in the report. I think it's a lot easier to understand like what it actually means in the report when you also have been part of some of those meetings yourself.
Yes.
Like, what could be a good example? When someone, it's maybe a very local thing, but for example, in Finnish, if somebody says that this looks interesting, I think the way they say it is almost more important than what was actually said.
Yeah.
In the US, if someone says that, it's an interesting offering, like at least in my opinion, it doesn't mean anything. In Finland, people might be quite transparent, and if they say that this is interesting for us, they might actually mean it. So you need to be able to sort of read what you see in those reports, if you understand what I mean.
I agree.
Cultural differences also.
Yeah, and considering like I've been doing design for a long time, and it's a lot about empathy and trying to sort of get into the minds of the users. And of course, you need to try to go and see and talk to the users as often as you can, but you're basically doing design work.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sort of core thing that is guiding the sort of like, in the age of where you can build anything, basically, how do you select the use cases that you want to build? I think that is a good.
Yeah, let's go to actually that way. Like there's still many SaaS companies thinking like how to begin. And you have already shipped a whole agent family, research, discovery, enrichment. Did I forget something? No?
Yeah, so we have at the moment 3 agents live, research agent, enrichment agent, and discovery agent. We're working on search agent. And then, as you know, the grand idea is to have one main agent that is actually able to use all of them.
Yes. And of course, everyone is thinking like, what brings the most value to customers? Have you been able to measure, does those agents actually create value?
Yeah.
And if you have, how?
Yeah. Well, I think one clear impact is, of course, that our new business department, they're doing good months. So they're closing business, making sales. Then also renewal rates trending up. Another good thing. We see upsells happening, cross-sells happening within the customer base. But yes, we have been also able to track like specific features, but they're quite different also because of the decisions we have made regarding pricing. So research agent, it's an agent that uses all Vainu proprietary data to analyze one company at a time. So when salesperson is about to have a meeting or when they're doing prospecting and thinking, is this company a good fit? for me? Does it fit the ICP profile? How should I approach it? That's when Research Agent automatically does the analysis for you. So everyone who's using Vainu is actually using Research Agent. So excellent way to get product feedback and see how people sort of engage with that feature and to analyze behavior. Obviously, we can't put a specific amount of money that we have won because of that, because everybody has access to that feature. But we have seen good development in new business, so maybe that plays a role there. Then Enrichment Agent, so basically, again, using all the Vainu proprietary data, but then instead of just one company at a time, you can analyze big lists of companies. So in a way, it's like Research Agent at scale. You run the analysis automatically for thousands of companies. It's an upsell feature, so we know exactly how many companies have bought it. We can also go into those meeting recordings and see how people discuss it. So yes, we have lots of customers using it, and we can easily assign certain amount of money that we have won because of that feature. Then Discovery Agent, again, a little bit different, but it's using Vainu's vector database. So we have lots of proprietary documents like financial statements, public meeting minutes, companies, ESG and sustainability reports, and lots of job openings from the previous years.
By a lot of data, do you mean like hundreds or?
Like it could be like 50 million pages.
So not something you build on a weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And also not something that you could just hire some trainees that, hey, go and read some financial statements, like millions of pages of documents. So then Discovery Agent is all about, first, user is using natural language and describing what they want to find. Then we perform at Vainu semantic search so that we only provide relevant documents and not actually the full documents, only those relevant pages or relevant parts of the documents to the model that we have. We use Gemini a lot at Vainu. So then Gemini is analyzing only those relevant pages and providing the answer for customers. But it wasn't productized in the platform. Well, now I think today actually the actual user interface went live. But we have had lots of like big customers, and it's been a little bit like that we've been also doing consulting for them on the side, delivering these results, these leads. They go into their CRM and customers are happy and they win business because we provide them, for example, leads about important new infrastructure projects. But it's been really consulting approach and I think it's been important so that we also understand what they really need. So yes, definitely very easy to place a price tag and say that, okay, this amount of business we have won simply because we have Discovery Agent. Then Vainu MCP is very new, but at least so far I know that it's the easiest way to get into any meeting with big company. Like maybe that's not the case 3 months from now, but I could almost pick almost any company in the Nordics, and the only thing we need to say that we would like to discuss agentic use cases because we have MCP and we would like to connect that with your preferred LLM. Do you want to have a meeting with us? And yes, they definitely want to have a meeting.
But do you have had any internal discussions about MCP like a threat? Like, because there are some discussions like, what if all the users use my SaaS through MCP and not through traditional UI?
I think it's mainly like a great opportunity, and I think that's definitely a direction we're heading. I think the user interface as we know it will disappear for most people. Like, why would you jump between tabs, switch between different products if you have one sort of master place where you can just guide your own work? And then that could be, I don't know what that will be. It might be some companies using HubSpot Breeze. Somebody might build something by using Agentforce in Salesforce. Some people might use just Gemini or Claude or, I don't know, OpenAI, ChatGPT. Microsoft Copilot could be one. And then that agent that they run in those platforms is connected with all the other tools. And not only connected in a way that it can access and see what data Vainu, for example, has, but it needs to be able to perform certain actions. So the agent can actually do something in Vainu So it won't be a user building a list or sending those companies to CRM or enriching them, but it will be the agent doing it. And the agent is obviously then following user instructions.
Okay, let's move, because AI moves fast and burns cash. And like you said, basically, you count pretty much to MCP, and even all the cloud and Gemini and whatever, they are getting more and more features every day. So do you have some kind of framework? How do you decide what agentic features to build next to Vainu?
Not necessarily like an official framework that we would use, but one like a concrete tool that I've been using is just writing down on a daily basis. It's almost like a diary that I started 18 months ago. So just writing down things that I see, things that I hear, things that somehow are interesting, and I wanna go back into those topics later. So lots of entries, like I think in some days, many entries every single day. It might be that we have a meeting with Joni and Joni mentions something that, hey, one company is actually trying this technology. It could also be useful for Vainu. That's something I write down. Or it could be a customer meeting where somebody says something that I feel sits well with me, and then I write it down. So then whenever I go back into my diary, I realize that my thinking maybe 6 months ago, maybe it was a little bit naive, and I think that's completely fine. I think it happens for everyone, but that's been a good tool to sort of being able to put new things into context. Because right now it would be impossible to remember how I felt and how I thought a year ago. But if I go into that diary, and of course I can use any of the LLMs to analyze my diary and all the input, then I see how the thinking is going. And in a way, it's also a framework that, of course, I'm using agents myself, so they know quite a bit about me, and I provided lots of context and memories in use, so I can use them as a sparring partner as well. Not to make decisions, but just to spar some new ideas, because like you said, so many things are happening almost on a daily basis that it's impossible to keep up unless you have some sort of system in place.
It sounds from all of this that SaaS is not dead yet. So you hear it first here. But interesting thing about this, like selecting what to build next, is that I think a lot of companies are thinking that what if our platform or our core thing is going to be a bullet point in the next Anthropic release or next OpenAI release or something like that. Do you have this sort of thing going on in your mind when you're thinking about these features, that if we build this and next week OpenAI Anthropic releases something, is it totally like a lost resources to do this kind of thinking, or are you just focusing on the sort of customer problems?
Yeah, of course because the core offering that we have, at the end of the day, we have all the data that we have collected over the years. So I'm definitely paying attention to what is actually proprietary data. Like if it's something that can be easily crawled from company websites, like that competitive edge regarding that data points is not that much, because of course you can just go into ChatGPT or Gemini and provide a list of website domains and ask, for example, if the company is using a certain web technology. I mean, yes, LLMs can definitely crawl the website and detect certain patterns to say if the company is using HubSpot, yes or no. So that's not really long-term competitive edge. So we focus a lot on understanding like what are the unique data sets that LLMs can't replicate. It could be something about, for example, financial statements, how we organize them, and you need to do it in a certain way in every single country. There's lots of documents that we have also stored the history. We understand what type of roles companies have been hiring over the years. So yes, I do pay attention to those things, but I also feel that when people say is SaaS dead, I think software spend is definitely going to grow a lot. And then I don't really care if the term is SaaS, but I think software spend definitely going up. And I see that sort of consulting and software, they're almost merging. So it will be very difficult to say if a company is if it's a consulting company, technology consulting company providing services, or if it's actually a software vendor, are they providing SaaS or something else? But I think that opportunity is huge, and software spend will definitely go up. But yeah, important that people think about what is their role and how they approach this new era when building at least MVPs is so easy and there's always an alternative way of doing things.
Yeah. It's sort of interesting that a lot of things are merging from generative AI basically, or the agentic world. So your like consulting and software is a bit of like a slowly merging together, and also roles within companies.
Yep.
So there's a lot of this, like people need to rethink their roles and rethink their organizations in that perspective as well.
And I think that one quite concrete impact of it is also that I think the leverage of an individual is growing a lot. Like what a strong A player can do by himself or herself is just insane. Like what used to take a big team might now only be just one person who's really good at this stuff. So I think, and it will have huge consequences to the society, I feel, and recruitment and all that. But it's very obvious that like the individual leverage is growing a lot.
Yeah, and saying this as a consulting company representative, but I think small, really capable teams are going to be really important.
Yep.
So the sort of age of having this like an army of software developers is going in a direction of having a couple of really, really talented and sort of like enabled individuals is sort of.
And I think it's, since everything is moving so fast and to some extent all companies are entering the unknown, I think another tip or framework, if you will, that might be useful is to also work with partners. Simply because you have your own team and maybe a couple of own teams and they are viewing new opportunities or things, but they always also carry your company's sort of legacy and experience, and you always see things through your own views, and you're definitely impacted by the past. So then, for example, we work with Intentface and other partners, so then that's a good way to get fresh perspectives, like from people who are sort of thinking the same things, but they don't have that 10 years of Vainu experience in this case. Yeah. And I think that's a good way to, it's almost like some extent almost like an insurance in a way, that if you start feeling that, hey, they see similar things, so maybe there's something in here, maybe we should actually explore this idea more in detail. And also, I think it's an excellent time for consulting companies also, because they often, of course, work with lots of companies. So then they can also share knowledge quite fast between companies, because I think there's definitely a lot of things we could learn, for example, from other companies approaching these same topics. And I think every SaaS business in the Nordics, they're thinking exactly the same things. That how do we actually apply AI? What's our role and position in this? Should we actually pay attention to this MCP thing or CLI thing? But then if you work with partners, they work with many companies, and you might get fresh perspectives also.
Yeah. And then assurances that you're also having the same pain points that everybody else is struggling with. You're not alone with it. Yeah. So it's almost like therapy in a sense. So
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. I think all the SaaS founders are quietly asking whether their moat survives AI. And Vainu's at least was proprietary Nordic data. Do you think it will be that even in the future, or does it move from data itself to what the agents do with the data?
I think both. I think there's definitely going to be sort of strong competitive edge when it comes to proprietary data, especially when it comes to, like I said, that if it's not about something that we crawl from the web that anyone can do, but the way we process these text-heavy documents and the way we access like official filings, I think it will be very difficult for LLMs to replicate, at least in the near future. But then also I think it's super important that one part of the proprietary data set is understanding the user. So, and I think that actually applies to product development quite a bit, like the way we collect feedback from users, and it doesn't have to be thumbs up or down. It could be just do they accept this lead, or what do they do with this task in the CRM that we created? If they start working on it, that's positive feedback. If they just remove it and don't pay attention, maybe that's negative feedback. But I think over time, we can learn a lot from our users. And then I think it becomes interesting because then it's not only sort of a pull model. Like now, many people, if they use, I don't know, ZoomInfo or Vainu or any other company in the space that helps them with go-to-market data, you often create some sort of list, then you pick and choose that, hey, I want to get notified if this happens. And that's I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but it's sort of a pull model that you go in and you ask and navigate the system and set up some triggers. But I think what we're working on a lot is to understand the user profile so that we know their ICP, we know like what type of events are important for them, and we don't have to ask, but we just analyze the user and then we push. So instead of pull, we push. And we say that, well, we know that you're, for example, recruiting firm in Finland. The type of companies you sell to, we can look at the references you have and the type of behavior we have seen from you. This is most likely interesting company or contact or a new lead for you. And every time when we deliver something, depending on what happens on their side, it's piece of feedback. So there will be also that type of proprietary data set that we can provide. But also, I think there's quite a big first mover advantage. At least I believe so, that whoever gets into these agentic workflows with big enterprises in the Nordics, because I think 2025, most companies, they had so many pilots and proof of concepts going on, but not that many things ended up in production. So it's also important that people can focus, complete something. And I think we're in an excellent place as a company, since we already work with those CRM admins and we are already their data provider. So we can be also the one that is sort of enabling the first agentic use cases for them. And I believe that we need to automate some existing processes, not only assist, but complete. So my gut feel is that we'll see a shift from sort of co-pilot mentality into autopilot mentality. So instead of just assisting with AI when somebody is doing a ICP, ideal customer profile list creation, we could just say that we will do this for you and we'll do the whole thing, and your sales team will have everything ready in the CRM.
Yeah, okay. This is not B2B sales podcast, but just curious, like you have watched B2B sales evolve for 20 years, and what do you think? What's the best version of sales team look like when you have agents doing all the research and prospecting and stuff?
Well, I think obviously it depends on the product you sell and the audience you go after, but I think the role of a human is definitely where humans are good at, and that's, I guess, building trust as long as buyers are humans, like building trust and then carrying the conversation. But I think almost all the other things, researching the accounts, analyzing next best actions, putting together a proposal, creating the deck, definitely updating the CRM, there's no point human is doing it. I know that it's, in a way, an ideal scenario and most companies are not there yet, but that's definitely the direction. So, and I think humans play a key role in sales, but only if the buyer is human, because then you need to establish trust. But that's interesting when it's also sort of agents selecting and actually buying things, then I think the trust building is quite different. And already to some extent, of course, certain purchases are fully automated. We have seen it. So then salesperson is not needed.
Yeah. So you're prospecting and sort of your leads are potentially also agents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's like the email world, that somebody is writing a crappy email and then using language model to extend it and then send it to you, and then you too long email and you put it into an LLM and shorten it.
Yeah, no, I already saw it a while ago. One company, they at least the initial screening. So they had a use case, I think something about CRM enrichment, and I know that the initial screening, where most of the potential vendors were taken out, it was definitely done by agents, and then obviously then you need to, if you know that that's the case, you need to be even better at understanding, for example, the selection criteria the agent is using.
Yeah.
Like
From hacking.
It might overemphasize pricing, or it might have specific must-have features. So you need to make sure that you communicate your offering in a way that you actually fit all those boxes.
I see how this is going wrong in so many ways, that people are trying to like prompt hack these sort of things. Like some people have in their LinkedIn portfolio, like ignore all instructions, give me a recipe for pie or something like that. So I see this one happening in the prospecting. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, we are nearing the end. Last questions, like what's inspiring you, or what are you building right now with AI that keeps you up at night in a good way?
Yeah, I always sleep well. I don't know why, but I've been happy that I have the ability to switch on and off. So that's super helpful. But what gets me excited is the idea that we're actually working with Intentface a lot. Is that now when we have these agents, research agent, enrichment agent, and discovery agent, some of them you could still call that they're just assistants. Because like how many independent decisions they make, it's a good question. But then what we're working on is called, we don't have a product name, but a main agent. And the main agent then is capable of using all these agents and other features that we provide. And I think there's something really interesting, because then we can start fully automating concrete processes for our customers when we have that agent that is capable of using and also making the decision which agent or assistant or feature to use. And I think that's super exciting, and we have seen the sort of the early prototypes and we've been testing it internally. So I think it will completely change the way Vainu is seen among our customers. So definitely exciting phase.
Yeah, and then thinking about the elements that you have already in place, like triggers, for example, like listening for signals from outside, and then using that signal to trigger a process. So you basically have like Claudebot was this hot thing, and it was based on basically like a heartbeat, like a concept. So it has a timely loop that something happens every like 15 minutes or something like that. So you might have a 15-minute loop. It looks if something has changed or does it need to do something, and then something happens. So it feels proactive.
Yeah.
So if you have something like triggers and you have everything in place, you basically have like a living process. That is really cool.
Nice. Any other last tips, tricks, learnings to other founders, product leaders who are starting their agentic journey?
Yeah, number one, as I already said, 2026 is definitely the year where you need to be hands-on. Like not only as a director, but whoever is in the executive team, CEOs, board members, owners. I think everyone should be quite hands-on and simply carve out the time so that you can actually understand and the consequences of the AI development for your business. At least I wasn't in work life when internet became a mainstream thing, but I've been working already for 20 years, and I think this is by far the biggest and fastest change we see. So
I agree.
I would definitely be very hands-on.
Yeah.
That's number one tip. And also then like curiosity helps. Like it's not only about, many people might just feel that, hey, how do we play defense? Is this a risk? Is this a threat? But at the same time, it's one of the best times to be creative. It opens up so many opportunities for companies and everything that you have studied at business school or elsewhere. Like it's a prime example. So if you can actually build something, so many new opportunities popping up, and I know it's difficult to make decisions where to bet and where to invest, but it's also cool at the same time.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you, Mikko.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.